Following breaking news out of New York, where a hearing on the Justice Department's effort to dismiss corruption charges against New York City Mayor Eric Adams just wrapped up. The judge pressed acting Deputy Attorney General Emil Bovee about why these charges should be dismissed. Bovee said it was a matter of, quote, national security because the charges would hinder the mayor's ability to assist the federal government with its crackdown on immigration. Adams' attorney insisted there was no quid pro quo agreement with the White House on that issue. Even if the judge agrees to dismiss the charges, Adams' political future still remains very much in question. New York's Democratic Governor Kathy Hochul met with New York City leaders yesterday as she decides whether to exercise her authority to remove the mayor from office.
I consulted them and legal advisors on whether it's appropriate and necessary at this moment to exercise the power granted to me as the governor of the state of New York by the New York State Constitution and the City of New York Charter to remove a mayor from office. I've also heard from many voices of New Yorkers who feel outraged, who feel hurt, betrayed by what they have seen. And I want those New Yorkers to know I understand those feelings as well. After careful consideration, I have determined that I will not commence removal proceedings at this time.
Boy. So we got to talk about what I believe to be the most fascinating story in politics right now. The full-blown political war between the Trump administration and the New York Democrats. The New York Democrats led by Kathy Hochul, who is pissed off with Mayor Eric Adams, the mayor of New York City, for working with the Trump administration in order to carry out the largest mass deportation operation in American history, right? She's so pissed that she, at least was, thinking about removing Eric Adams as mayor of New York City, right? She was going to exercise her power as the governor of New York to remove the mayor. And there was just a hearing that took place yesterday in which a judge heard arguments from the DOJ about why they want to dismiss charges against Eric Adams. And the Trump administration essentially argued that, hey, this is not a quid pro quo that Democrats are boohoo-whining, crying about. This is about national security, right? We essentially need the mayor to help us enforce federal law. He is not out of the woods yet, okay? Charges can be brought against him again, but as of right now, he needs to be able to do his job to protect the American people.
Co-author of Politico's New York Playbook. Thanks to both of you for joining me. Really appreciate it. So, Tom, take us inside the courtroom. What happened today?
Yeah, so all the parties got into the courtroom about 10 minutes before we began, around 2 o'clock. Hearing barely lasted 90 minutes, Kristen. And basically, what both parties were trying to say, in what Emil Bovee, in his role here previously as a unit chief in the Southern District of New York and somebody who presented a number of cases, a number of prosecutions, went just straight to the most simplest explanation and the simplest message to the judge, which is, look, this is a basic motion that we file, we being the Justice Department, file all the time. It's a Rule 48 motion for us to be able to dismiss the case without prejudice. There's really no question here. We're not saying that we're tossing this case permanently. We're not telling you that we are tossing it under certain conditions. To your point, the judge specifically asked under oath the mayor of the city of New York, Eric Adams, whether anything had been promised to him, written or otherwise, whether there was any sort of an agreement that was in place, whether he had been threatened. And all across it, the mayor said, no, that wasn't the case at all. And so what Bovee was trying to do is simply say, look, this is something we do all the time. We can still revisit this issue. And so from a court's perspective, it's his belief that this case should be dismissed and that should be dismissed quickly because he's trying to make the argument, whether or not people believe it or not, but he's trying to make the argument. By the way, he doesn't necessarily need to prove that to the judge, that this is a national security concern. He admits it's not something that's come up with public officials before, at least that he's aware of. But he's trying to say, look, we've got to do what we've got to do on immigration. We've got to do what we've got to do from a national security standpoint. And we got to just get this thing decided. Obviously, the mayor's attorney not going to dispute any of that. He did obviously dispute the idea of a quid pro quo that you alluded to. So the judge just says, look, I don't want to shoot from the hip here on the bench. Literally said that. He said, I wanted the opportunity to review all this and make a ruling on it. He had not ruled previously from the bench in this case up until this point, Kristen. So that's not totally surprising. those seem to shut down the notion of any further inquiry or at least did not allude to any additional issues that he's likely to bring up.
Yeah, so we're going to see if the judge agrees to drop the charges against Eric Adams. Meanwhile, Kathy Hochul, again, was thinking about whether or not she wanted to remove Eric Adams, okay? Because ultimately, at the end of the day, she does not want Eric Adams to be helping out the Trump administration, okay? They want to allow the illegal immigrant criminals to continue to cause destruction and chaos. This is what Democrats are fighting for. They're quite literally fighting for criminals, okay? Now, what's interesting about this story is that as Kathy Hochul was making her decision about what she's going to do, you had black lawmakers who showed up basically in support of Eric Adams. People like Al Sharpton, who's not a lawmaker, but I'm just saying, like, apparently there was a group of lawmakers, black lawmakers, who did not want Eric Adams to be removed, basically because he's black, right? And it would be a bad look to remove Eric Adams without an actual real legal justification for doing so.
A group of black lawmakers are warning New York Governor Kathy Hochul of a possible political fallout if she were to remove New York City Mayor Eric Adams from office. In a letter obtained by Politico, the 8 elected officials, led by Democratic New York State Assemblywoman Rodneyce Bichotte-Hermelin, wrote they wanted to make it crystal clear they oppose any move to remove Adams. Quote, as black legislators, we have seen this over and over again. Double standards and unfair process when it comes to our leaders. If a move against the mayor is made without a justifiable legal reason, our communities will never forget it. The warning comes after Hochul met with key leaders this week, including Reverend Al Sharpton, to discuss potentially removing Adams from office over concerns about his ability to serve the city effectively after 4 of his deputy mayors quit. Adams is accused of a quid pro quo with the Justice Department to drop criminal charges against him in exchange for Adams helping the Trump administration's immigration policies. In September, Adams was indicted on 5 federal counts of bribery, corruption, wire fraud, and soliciting and accepting donations from foreign nationals. Adams pleaded not guilty and has denied any wrongdoing. Hochul said she would at least wait until a federal judge Wednesday gets an explanation from prosecutors about why the charges should be dropped. In a statement Monday, Hochul said overturning the will of the voters is a serious step that should not be taken lightly. The lawmakers noted in their letter to Hochul there is an election in June, and New Yorkers can once again determine their leadership then. Elections give the ability for voters to choose who they want to represent them. New Yorkers will recognize that once this difficult period is behind us. Hochul has not responded to the letter publicly, and there's no word whether she responded directly to those lawmakers.
Yeah, so again, a fascinating turn of events, okay? Because you would think that these black lawmakers, okay, because they're Democrats, they would agree with Kathy Hochul removing Eric Adams, but actually they don't, right? They are like, well, the dude's black, okay, and he's technically still a Democrat, so therefore she shouldn't do it, right? Especially without a justified legal reason, which they are right about that. She does not have a justifiable legal reason for removing Eric Adams. You just can't say, well, I think that he engaged in a quid pro quo with the administration, therefore I'm going to overturn the will of the people, right? I'm going to stage a coup in New York City because I don't like the fact that Eric Adams is working with the Trump administration to enforce federal law, by the way, right? Again, it just blows my mind how far Democrats will go to protect criminals, okay? To protect criminals. I've never seen Democrats fight this hard to actually protect the American people, to protect citizens. So once again, we have the Democrats showing us what their priorities are, okay? Their priorities are protecting criminals. That's their priority, okay? Illegal immigrants. It's crazy stuff. So with that being said, it seems as if the arguments that were made to Kathy Hochul on why she should not remove Eric Adams, those arguments seem to resonate because she has decided to fold on that, and instead she's going to limit Eric Adams' powers, his executive powers, to work with the Trump administration. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Some breaking news right now at 4 o'clock. Any minute now, New York Governor Kathy Hochul expected to announce that she's taking legal action to limit Mayor Eric Adams' powers and to have more state oversight over what his administration does.
Now, this comes after calls for her to use her power as governor to remove Mayor Adams from office. Now, sources say she is not planning to remove him as of now.
Okay, so while we are standing by for that announcement from the governor, let's go live to Henry Rossoff outside the governor's office here in Midtown with what we know about her plan. Henry, you were also with the mayor a little bit earlier in the Bronx, I believe, and trying to get him to respond to these potential limits on his power.
Yes, I was. And I was also here 2 days ago, just outside the governor's office, where we saw her deliberately taking meeting after meeting with top city leaders, trying to evaluate the credibility and what she should potentially do about these allegations of a quid pro quo, where the mayor is accused of trading immigration enforcement and other policy priorities of the Trump administration in exchange for the president's DOJ dismissing the corruption case against him. Now, as we take a look at some video of the mayor moving in and out of federal court yesterday, we know that Mayor Adams has vehemently denied this allegation. He quite literally swore to a federal judge yesterday there were no promises made nor threats that happened in exchange for this dismissal deal. The judge has not yet said whether he would agree to dismiss the case. But the governor's moved carefully here with her deliberation. She's consistently resisted calls to outright remove the mayor. You'll remember when Mayor Adams was initially indicted in the fall, Governor Hochul essentially forced personnel changes upon him. Well, this time it looks like she's poised to essentially put guardrails around him as it applies to his legal team, the city's legal team, the budget office, and other restrictions, including interactions with the Trump White House. I tried to ask the mayor, despite pushback from his press team, how these limitations would impact his ability to run the city. Specifically, he was in the Bronx highlighting a multi-agency effort involving police, sanitation, homeless services to combat drug use and quality of life issues. So take a listen to the mayor and how quickly his people shut down questioning. Are you concerned about any limits to your power would stop you from running the city like this?
Thank you. It's ridiculous. Nothing about the law. Thank you guys.
Wow, this is this is crazy, right? This is a crazy story. Eric Adams, he looks very weak right now, right? He looks like a puppet. He looks like a pawn. It's almost as if the New York Democrats, led by Kathy Hochul, they have one hand on one of his testicles, right? And then you have the Trump administration, they got their hands on the other testicle, right? And they're both. That's what it kind of seems like to me. This guy really is stuck between a rock and a hard place. Again, it shows you just how weak the New York City mayor is, right? I didn't realize that New York City mayor was this powerless, okay? He quite literally is just a pawn of the state government. He can't really do that much, right? The executive powers that he was supposed to use to help out the Trump administration to carry out the mass deportations, Kathy Hochul is now trying to limit that, okay? Apparently she can limit that as governor, okay? So I'm not entirely sure how he's going to be able to continue to work with the Trump administration, but it seems as if Kathy Hochul is going out her way to make sure that he can.
So there you see it, shutting down questions. Of course, the proposal, to be fair, hasn't been unveiled yet, but we're already hearing from sources close to the mayor that they believe this is just a power grab ahead of the mayoral election that will give the governor and potentially state legislatures and the city council even more control over either Mayor Adams, a potential Mayor Cuomo, or anyone else running in this election. And so that is the sort of spin we're hearing initially already coming out of those close to Mayor Adams. Live near the governor's Midtown office, Henry Rossoff, Pixel.
Yeah, so you've seen that, you heard that. Kathy Hochul is going to limit the powers of Eric Adams, okay? And I think the calculation from Democrats here is that, well, Eric Adams is probably going to lose the Democrat primary coming up, and that's how they're going to eventually get rid of him. Now, who knows? Maybe Eric Adams will decide to run as a Republican. I don't know. I mean, at this point, Eric Adams, he has some tough decisions to make because with the governor now limiting his power as mayor, he's gonna have to pick a side, right? Seriously, he's going to have to pick a side, okay? Are you going to continue to work with the Trump administration or what? What are you gonna do, Eric? Okay, I think that Eric Adams should do the right thing. I think that he should continue to work with the Trump administration, okay, to do everything that he can and more to help arrest the illegal immigrants and to fight back against the Democrats, right? He might as well just go out swinging, right? If you're gonna go out swinging, okay? I'm just saying. That is what I think Eric Adams should do. So we'll see But let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.